chant. Gauranga. Okay, here we go. Alrighty. Make sure we're streaming. Okay, here we go. Alrighty. Make sure we're streaming. Okay, it's working. Okay, let me get my guitar out. Right, let's see. What are we going to chant tonight? Tonight. Okay. Vaishnavathakura Yarasadar Edase Karuna Gauri Ure Vaishnavathakura Yarasadar Edase Karuna Jaya Shota Heya Maya Tomaracharana Dori Deepada Jaya Shota Heya Maya Tomaracharana Jaiva Dharma Shori Jaya Guna Deva Say Jaiva Dharma Jaya Tosha Shori Jaya Guna Satsanga Deo Amare Oshichi Sangira Say Jaya Satsanga Deo Amare Moshe Moshe Sangira say Ekaki Amara Poi Bolo Harinam Sankira Ekaki Amara Vairono Nam Sankirtane Tumi Kripakore Shatabindu Diya Deho Krishna Namadane Tumi Kripakore Shatabindu Diya Deho Krishna Namadane Krishna se tomara Krishna tinte paru Tomara shakati ajay Krishna se tomara tinte paru Tomara shakati ajay Amito Gangala Krishna Krishna Boli Gaitava Pache Pache Amito Gangala Krishna Krishna Boli Gaitava Pache Vaishnavata Pura Harusaga Edase Punakori Jai Prabhupada Prabhupada Jai Prabhupada Prabhupada, 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 Jai Om Vishnupad, Paramahansa Paramahansa, also Tetas at the Shibad, is divine grace, Abhaya Chaitanya Bhaktivedanta Goswami, Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai, ISKCON founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai, Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai, Namacharya Srila Vilas Thakur Ki Jai. Prem Se Gaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shidwaita Gadadha Shivasati Gaur Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai. Shri Shri Radhakrishna Gopi Gopinath Sai Mukunda Radhakunda Giri Govardhan Ki Jai. Vrindavanam Ki Jai, Mathuram Ki Jai, Jagadasami Ki Jai, Yamuna Mai Ki Jai, Srimati Lasi Devi Ki Jai, Samaveda Bhakta, Vrinda Ki Jai, Gaur Parimalanda Hari Hari Bol. All glorious the assembled devotees, all glorious the assembled devotees, all glorious the assembled devotees, all glorious to Shri Guru and Gauranga, Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai, Gaur Premananda Hari Hari Bol. Nama Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Pastai Bhutle Shrimati Bhaktivedanta Swami Nityanamani Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pachari Nivasesa Sunyavadi Paschatya Dejatarne. So we're going to continue. Oh, let me read the translation. O Venerable Vaishnava, ocean of mercy, be merciful unto your servant. Give me the shade of your lotus feet and purify me. I hold on to your lotus feet. Teach me to control my 6 passions, rectify my 6 faults. Bestow upon me the 6 qualities and offer unto me the 6 kinds of holy association. I do not find the strength to carry on alone the Sankirtan of the holy name of Hari. Please bless me by giving me just 1 drop of faith with which to obtain the great treasure of the holy name of Krishna. Krishna is yours, you have the power to give him to me. I'm simply running behind you, shouting, Krishna, Krishna. Okay, Bhaktivinoda Thakur Ki Jai. So we're going to continue with our study of the Jaiva Dharma by Bhaktivinoda Thakur, one of the 2 books that Prabhupada considered very important in terms of the writings of Bhaktivinoda Thakur, Chaitanya Shikshamrita and Jaiva Dharma. And so Jaiva Dharma is very philosophical. At the same time, it has stories that help us understand the philosophy better. So right now we're on chapter 3 of the Jaiva Dharma. We're going to share the screen. Om Ganat Timidanda Shah Gananjana Shalakya Chakshur Meditam Yena Tasmai Shigurve Namaha. So, chapter 3, which is entitled Nai Mitika Dharma is incomplete, mixed with objectionable elements and impermanent. So just to explain what Nai Mitika Dharma is, let me just get this set up here so I can see the chat window in case someone has a heart attack during class. They can send me a chat. Otherwise, don't send me a chat because it just disturbs until we're finished with reading. So, Namitika is the opposite of Nitya Dharma. The Nitya Dharma means the eternal position of the soul. Namitika Dharma means the soul that is under the influence of the material energy has some dharmas, both duties and different manifestations of their personality or ontology or whatever you may call it, happens within the material world when the soul is in the material world under the illusion of thinking himself to be the controller or the proprietor. So here is an explanation in this chapter of Naimatika Dharma is incomplete, mixed with objectionable elements and impermanent. Okay, chapter 3. One day, and actually this is a conversation between, this particular part of the Jaiva Dharma is a conversation between the Premadas Babaji, or Paramahamsa Babaji, and the sannyasi, who was previously a Mayavadi sannyasi who got the mercy of a Vaishnava when he heard the holy names being chanted by a Vaishnava, and then he came to Navadvip and Godrumadvip, and he got the association of this great Babaji, and he's getting instructions, and he's a Vaishnava at this point, but he hasn't changed his sannyas dress to the dress of a Vaishnava. And we were explaining yesterday what sannyas dress was in those days. It was like a gamsha, or like a lungi, white, shaved head completely, no sika, certainly no danda. So, let's continue. One day, 3 hours into the night, the sannyasi, singing the name, of course is Krishna's name, was sitting on some high ground in a grove of Godrundreep and gazing to the north. This is such an interesting story here. Just listen very carefully, please. When the full moon rose, Navadvip radiated great beauty. Not far off, Mayapur became visible. The sannyasi said, I am seeing one astonishing, blissful abode. There's a huge jeweled tower, a temple, and a gateway shining brightly, lighting up the bank of the Ganga. The sound of Haridam Sankirtan splits the sky. Hundreds of devotees like Narada are playing venas and dancing. White-complexioned Shiva, holding a drum, shouts, "O Vishwambar, give mercy," while dancing and falling on the ground. In another place, four-headed Brahma recites a Vedic mantra, Mahan Prabhur Vaipurusha Satvasyaisha Pavartaka Siddhirmalam Imam Praptam Ishano Jyotir Avyaya, and gives perfect explanation to an assembly of sages chanting the Vedas. So the translation of that recitation is, Mahaprabhu, the Lord, is the instigator of sattva. He is the purest attainment. He is the eternal light. The Devatas, such as Indra, saying, Jai Prabhu Gaurachandra, Jai Nityananda, were jumping up and down. All the birds perched on the tree branches were chirping, Gaura Nitai, Gaura Nitai. Wow, what a vision. The bees, intoxicated from drinking the nectar of Gaura's name, were buzzing everywhere in the flower gardens. Prakriti Devi spread beauty everywhere, being intoxicated with Gaura's ras. In the daytime, I do not see this when I look at Mayapur. What am I seeing today? Remembering his guru, he said, Prabhu, today I've understood. Started a few days ago. Today I've understood, being merciful to me, you have revealed spiritual Mayapur to me. From today I will arrange to be recognized as a follower of Gaur Chandra. I see that everyone in spiritual Navadvip is holding tulsi beads, wearing tilak and the name of the Lord written on their limbs. I will also do that. Saying this, this sannyasi then fainted. So he had this vision by the mercy of his guru. Quickly he regained consciousness. When he did so, he no longer saw that remarkable spiritual vision. Continually weeping, he said, I am so fortunate because obtaining Guru's mercy for a short time, I saw the abode of Navadvip. Amazing story. The next day, the sannyasi threw his danda into the water, put 3 strands of tulsi beads around his neck, and applied tilak to his forehead. Saying, Hari, Hari, he began dancing. The devotees of Godruma, seeing his remarkable new dress and his bhava, offered respects, thinking him the most fortunate. Becoming somewhat embarrassed by this honor, he said, I have accepted the dress of a Vaishnava to attain the mercy of the Vaishnavas, but there is irony. For I've repeatedly heard my guru say, Trinadapi sunichena taror apisishnana manina manadena kirtanya, said Hari. One should be as humble as a blade of grass and as tolerant as a tree. One should chant at all times by not expecting respect and respecting all others. So this is very interesting. Well, let's go back a little bit. So in the previous chapter, the sannyasi was asking his guru, can I change my dress to that of a Vaishnava? And the guru said, basically, it shouldn't be an artificial thing. You should wait until the Lord wants it or until you get the realization. And don't do it artificially. Don't be a pretend Vaishnava. So this is quite interesting. Of course, last night someone asked the question, what do we do when we're preaching to Western devotees and they want to dress like Vaishnavas? Should we discourage them? And I said, no, because that's going to get them to chant. But it's not a problem I have in America that people jump into Vaishnava dress or traditional Indian dress. Anyway, so here the sannyasi is getting respect because he changed his dress to that of a Vaishnava in those days, what a Vaishnava dressed as, or like in those days. So the sannyasi is getting so much respect for that. And actually he didn't do it to get respect, he did it for the right reason because he had this revelation given to him by his guru of what Mayapur was, and he was completely convinced, and all of his doubts went away at that point. So the interesting thing is that doubts go away by experience. Pratyaksha bhagavam dharmam shushukam kartamaviyam rajavija rajaguyam. So anyway, so this process gives you experience, and when you get more experience, your doubts go away. Not only your personal experience, but you experience others advancing in Krishna consciousness, and you experience pure devotees who are already pure, obviously. Their manifestations. That increases one's faith. So the sannyasi became completely absorbed and completely free of doubt. And so, but he was upset that he was getting respect at this particular time for changing his dress. And that happens sometimes when devotees put on Vaishnava gear for the first time, or and shave their head. They said, oh, you look really good. I remember the first time I shaved my head and put on a dhoti, the devotees said, oh, we can see you for the first time. Because before then I was hidden by a bunch of hair in my face and my head. The Vaishnavas whom I accept as guru offering me respects. What is my destination? Thinking in this way, he went to Paramahansa Babaji, his guru, and offered respects to him on the ground. The Babaji was seated on the Madhavi bower, chanting the names of the Lord. Seeing that the sannyasi had completely changed his dress and had developed attraction for the name, he bathed his disciple with his tears and embraced him. and gave him initiation. Oh, Vaishnava Das, today I have become successful by touching your auspicious body. So he was given the name like that. There was no need of fire sacrifice, because in those days the sannyasis didn't do fire sacrifices. The sannyasis generally didn't do fire sacrifices. And so the initiation would be, he would just get the mantra or the name like that. And so that's how Srila Gaurkishora Babaji Maharaj gave initiation to Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. No big fire sacrifice. Fire sacrifices for grahastas generally. But Prabhupada instituted the fire sacrifices, so did Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, so that people would take the initiation seriously. But the essence of the initiation is not the fire sacrifice. The essence of the initiation is the promise and the mantra. The promise the candidate is giving to follow certain practices and principles, and the reception of the mantra from the spiritual master. But ceremonies are good because they help cement in someone's mind that it's a very serious vow that they're taking. That's why marriage ceremonies, generally in India, they entail 3 days of rituals. Oh my God. Better than sannyas. But they entail 3 days of rituals. And the reason for that is people take it very seriously. Although there are traditions, or marriage traditions, that don't involve a lot of rituals, like the Gandharva marriage or the Rakshasa marriage. And these are bona fide, at least for Kshatriyas. So as soon as the sannyasi heard this, his previous name departed. He was now called by the name, sorry, I'm getting ecstatic, Vaishnava Das. From that day, the sannyasi took to an astonishing lifestyle. His Mayavad sannyas dress, his sannyas name, full of pride and thinking himself great, all vanished. Haribol! In the afternoon, he gave up Sarvapati Vanir Muktam Tatpada Tvena Nirmalam Shrishikena Rishikesha Sevanam Bhakta. He gave up all those upadis, the designation. I'm a sannyasi. That's a designation. It's a material designation. If someone thinks I'm a sannyasi, or brahmachari, or white or black, it's all just mundane. It's the body and connections with the body. In the afternoon, many devotees of Godrama and Majadvipa came to see Babaji in Prajuna Kunja. Surrounding him, they sat down. All were chanting the names of the Lord on Tulsi beads. Some exclaimed, "Oh, Gauranga Nityananda!" This is so ecstatic, this book. Some exclaimed, "Sita Nath!" That's its way to Charya. And some exclaimed, "Jai Sachi Nandana!" While tears flowed from their eyes. The devotees were discussing among themselves. Walking around a Tulsi plant, they offered respects to all the other devotees. At that time, Vaishnava Das arrived, circumambulated Tulsi, and began to roll in the dust from the devotees' feet. They whispered among each other, "He is not that sannyasi. Today, he has assumed an astonishing form." Rolling in front of the devotees, in other words, a manina, manadena, kirtaniya siddhari, rolling in front of the devotees, Vaishnava Das spoke. Isn't this ecstatic? Obtaining the dust of the devotees' feet, today I have become successful. By the mercy of my Guru, I know very well that the jiva has no resort except the dust from the devotees' feet. The devotees' foot dust, the water from their feet, and their food remnants are the medicine for the material disease and the diet for that disease. Wow. That's what Prabhupada said, 3 powerful substances. Foot, dust of the devotee, the pure devotee, the foot bathed in water, and the prasadam remnants. Not only does that medicine destroy the material disease, but gives the person the highest pleasure. O devotees, do not think that I am displaying my pride in learning. My pride has recently been destroyed. Why? I wish my pride had been destroyed too. No, Don't do it too quickly, Krishna. I was born in a Brahmin family and studied all scriptures. I entered the sannyasa ashram. My pride had no limit. The very day I became attracted to Vaishnava philosophy, a seed of humility was sown in my heart. By your mercy, gradually I've extinguished my pride in my birth, my pride in my learning, my pride in my ashram. Now in my heart I accept myself as a small jiva without shelter. Without the shelter of the devotee's feet, I cannot attain any goal. Being a Brahmin, a learned man, and a sannyasi has gradually made me fallen. I have said all this at your feet in a truthful mood. Please do what you want to your servant. Wow. Hearing Vaishnava Dasa's humble words, many persons said, O best of the devotees, we desire the dust of devotees like you. Please make us successful by giving us your foot dust. You are the recipient of Babaji's mercy. Associate with us and purify us. The Brihad Naradiya Purana says that if one takes association of persons like you, bhakti will manifest. Bhaktistu bhagavat bhakta sangena parijayate satsanga prapyate pumbi sukritai purvas hanjatai. Bhakti arises by association with devotees of the Lord. Persons who have accrued sukriti, that means pious activities or devotional activities in the past, attain the association of devotees. We have accrued piles upon piles of sukriti which nourish devotion. Because of that, we have attained your association. Because of the strength of your association, we now desire to attain bhakti to the Lord. So in other words, a devotee is like a touchstone. And these devotees, there's Vaishnava Das on one side and all the devotees on the other side, are expressing their mutual admiration, desire for association, humility with each other. This is such a great example. Normally we feel, I am the best devotee. I'm a sannyasi and the best devotee. When the devotees had finished expressing their humility and offering respects, Vaishnava sat on one side of the Babaji in the assembly of devotees and increased the splendor of the gathering. In his hand, a new set of beads shone brightly. In other words, he got beads too. On that day, in the assembly, one fortunate devotee was sitting. From a young age, he had studied Arabic languages and imitated the behavior of Muslim kings. In that land, he was known as a respectable person. He lived in Shantipur, of course that's Acharya's abode, and was born in a Brahmin family. He owned many lands and was skillful at handling complicated situations. Experiencing the pleasures of such a life for a long time, he was not satisfied. Finally, he took to Harinam Sankirtan. From his childhood, he had learned to sing ragas from expert singers in Delhi. On the strength of learning, he formed a group for Sankirtan. Though the devotees did not like his style of singing, he would display his prowess at singing various tunes during Sankirtan while glancing at the faces of the devotees. So in other words, his motivation was mixed. He was trying to get appreciation, profit, adoration, distinction, which is subtle sex life, from the devotees. I'm chanting so nicely. Hope you like it. Hare Krishna. Oh, look at me. But because it was chanting the holy name, even though it was mixed, still, as said here, acting in this manner for some days, he derived some pleasure from the name of the Lord. Thereafter, to get an opportunity to sing for the devotees of Navadvip, he came to Godruma and lived in a devotee's ashram there. He came with the devotees to Prajuna Kunja and sat in the jasmine and Madhavi bower. Hearing the words of Vaishnava Das and the exchanges and humble words of the devotees, some doubts arose in his mind. Since he was skillful with words, he boldly inquired in the assembly of devotees. So here we're going to see this interesting interaction. He said, in the Dharma Shastras, It's interesting in ISKCON right now. We have this whole discussion about Dharma Shastras, and people are pulling things out of context from the Dharma Shastras, which are Namitika Dharma, that means temporary Dharma, not Nitya Dharma. They're pulling things out from the Shastras to try to convince people of particular philosophical points or practical points, like who can be a guru. You know, the Dharma Shastras obviously may state that the only people who can be a guru are people born in Brahmin families. What to speak of ladies. But those Dharma Shastras, generally they deal with Namitika Dharma, not Nitya Dharma. So, but this particular individual is not understanding the difference between actual Nitya Dharma and Namitika Dharma, which is the discussion going on here. The temporary dharmas of people in the material situations, which Namitika is temporary dharma of people in the material situations who are not on a very high spiritual level. In the Dharma Shastras, like Manasami, the Brahmanas are said to be the topmost Varna. Varna means, of course, for those who don't know, that means Brahmins, Kshatriyas, Vaishyas, Shudras. Brahmins are the intellectuals, or those who are spiritual. The Kshatriyas are the rulers. The Vaishyas are businessmen and cow protection. And the Shudras are the workers and artists. The scriptures prescribe Sanja, Vandana, etc. for the Brahmanas as a Nitya karma. So let me explain what this Sanja, Vandana is. That means, Sanja means the different times of the day. Tri Sanja, morning, noon, evening. And in the morning, usually the Brahmanas do their Gayatri mantra. Noon they do the Gayatri mantra. And the evening they do the Gayatri mantra. Sunrise, sun overhead, sunset. So here says for Brahmins a Nitya karma. So here the word Nitya karma indicates, there's something you should always do. Not eternal karma, but although generally in this book Nitya karma means eternal activities, such as what? Hare Krishna, like that. If that is a daily ritual, why is all Vaishnava conduct contrary to this? So Vaishnavas do not like argument. When an argumentative Brahmin asks questions in this way, the devotees do not answer, fearing a quarrel. But since the question, in other words, especially if they don't go on the internet when someone wants to start a philosophical debate. Because generally, when people start a philosophical debate publicly, their whole idea, generally, there are exceptions, is to establish their own superiority rather than to arrive at the truth. But since the questioner also chanted the name, they said, everyone will be happy if Babaji answers the question. Hearing the request of the Vaishnavas, Babaji offered respects and said, if this is your desire, then the great devotee Vaishnava Das will give the perfect answer. Everyone agreed to this. So this was right after Vaishnava Das took initiation. Had his realization, changed his dress. All right, you're the preacher giving Sunday feast lecture now. Now the reason he chose Vaishnava Das is not simply he was testing him. The reason he chose Vaishnava Das is because Vaishnava Das was completely expert, as we'll see in the later chapters too, in all the scriptures, not only the Vaishnava scriptures, but he was expert in the Smriti Dharma, and Smriti means a ritualistic Dharma, and Purva Mimamsa, Uttara Mimamsa, Mayavad philosophy. He was completely well established in all these different philosophies, so he could actually understand and deal and defeat anybody. Hearing his guru's words, Vaishnava Das, feeling himself fortunate, began to speak with humility. I am very low and worthless. It is incorrect for me to speak in the assembly of great persons. Taking the order of Guru on my head, remembering the bet to the best of my ability, I will speak what I have heard from my guru. So he's humbly saying that actually I'm not really qualified to speak in front of all these great devotees. But because I've gotten the order of the guru, I'll be empowered. And so the order of the guru transcends ordinary etiquette. For example, ordinary etiquette would dictate that one should not accept service or a servant from amongst his godbrothers or her godbrothers or god sisters or whatever. But Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's spiritual master, Ishwara Puri, ordered two of his disciples to serve Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and they did. And then Kashishvara. Smearing the dust of the feet of the Guru on the limbs, he began to speak such humility. I wish I had gotten that opportunity just to take all the dust. I did smear dust or eat the dust from Prabhupada's feet once or twice, but like to take all the dust and smear it all over and be humble. This is the key to spiritual success, Prabhus. Smearing the dust from the feet of the Guru on the limbs, he began to speak and offer respects. May Krishna Chaitanya, who is the reservoir of all Prakash and Vilash forms, whose bodily effulgence is Brahman, and whose Angsha is Paramatma, inspire my intelligence. Dharma Shastras, like the Manusmriti, are respected by all because they define rules and prohibitions following the Vedas. So this is really important. We respect the Manusmriti. But, here's a big but, which you're going to hear, certain rules may not be applicable under certain circumstances. I mean, let's give an example. There's a mundane example, one that's dear to me. There's a rule that you shouldn't speed in a car, right? And I broke that rule and I got a ticket in the past, okay. But if you're a government official on official business, especially the police, you can speed. So the rules, or the application of rules, depend upon situations and persons. You know, who you are, what you're doing. Like if a policeman goes home, he can't speed because he's not on duty. So here's an explanation. This is really, I just gave a basic metaphor there. Man's nature is of two types, Vaidhi and Raganuga. Two. So Vaidhi means rules, Raganuga means like spontaneous or anuga, to follow in the footsteps of someone who's on the pure platform. So in both cases, people do follow rules. However, in one case they follow them to set an example because they don't really have to follow them. In the other case, they have to follow them, in the Vaidhi case. So, Vaidhi and Raganuga. As long as a man's intelligence is dependent on Maya, sounds like most of us, man's nature must remain in Vaidhi or rules. When a man's intelligence becomes free from Maya's bondage, the tendency for Vaidhi no longer remains. The Raganuga nature then manifests. The Raganuga nature is Jiva's pure nature. Raganuga, spontaneous, because Rag, one has an attraction, or a spontaneous attraction, one follows. It is natural, spiritual, and free of matter. By the desire of Krishna, the pure spiritual jiva becomes free of a relationship with matter. But as long as Krishna's desire does not manifest, the relationship with matter has only a potential to be destroyed. So in other words, until we become Krishna conscious, we have the potential to lose our relationship with matter, but we're not going to actually lose it. In other words, everyone has potential to be a pure devotee. Krishna says, I'm equal to everyone. So everyone has that potential. or some of us have actualized that potential. In other words, we've become pure devotees. Nah, I'm not claiming anything for myself. In that condition of imminent destruction, man's intelligence is still not free of matter by its nature. It is in reality not free of matter. When the jiva is actually free of matter, the pure jiva's tendency for ragatmika manifests as its nature and in reality. So here's the difference. There's ragatmika. So in raganuga, you may have some tendency towards matter, but you're on a high platform, so you're not bound by rules, and you follow a particular liberated associate of the Lord. And when one is completely liberated, then the jiva's tendency for ragatmika, that means their atma is raga, or attraction to Krishna, the very self. They have nothing else. And usually ragatmika devotees are described as the eternal devotees in the spiritual world, who, if you're on the raganuga platform, you follow. So ragatmika manifests as its nature and reality. The nature of the people in Braja is ragatmika in nature. So the word nature is repeated twice. Their nature, the people of Braj, have ragatmika as their nature. That would be more correct English. In other words, their very atmika, the self, is love of Krishna. That's it. That's their identity. Jiva Rasmupohoidnicha Krishna Das. But we haven't realized that. So following that nature while in the state of imminent destruction of matter, here's an interesting question. The jivas practice raganuga. In other words, if we're following that nature, we're following in the footsteps, we're following strictly Krishna consciousness, then we can practice this raganuga. This condition is most auspicious for a jiva. As long as this condition does not manifest man's intelligence, follows material objects. In this condition, the foolish jiva considers that this attraction for material objects to be anurag. That's what he's supposed to follow, his attachment to material objects. This is not pure anurag for spiritual objects. He thinks of material objects in terms of I and mine. My body, my car. So he says, this body is mine and I am this body. Thinking in this way, a person attempts to attain happiness for the material body. He develops a fondness for persons who produce happiness for his body and develops hatred for persons who obstruct that happiness. You cook so nicely. I love you because you cook so nicely. That's actually funny. The way to a man's heart is through his stomach. That's exactly right. So we develop fondness for persons who produce happiness for his body and develop hatred for persons who obstruct that happiness. I'm going down the road, someone cuts me off with his car. I go, I hate you. I've been with someone, when they were driving, someone cut them off and they said, let me go out there and yell at the person or punch the person. I said, no, please no. Or at least honk the horn. Under the control of attraction and hatred, the foolish jiva, that's us, manifests physical, social, or moral attraction, or mortal attraction and repulsion to others, and things in terms of enemies and friends, or enemy and friend. In terms of enemy and friend. More correct English, enemies and friends. Receiving objects, he quarrels. Developing unlawful attraction to money and women, he becomes dependent on happiness and suffering. This is called samsara, which basically means repeated birth and death. Attracted to samsara, this person attains birth, descents, results of karma, and high or low states. The jivas bound by maya wander about. All these jivas do not easily understand about spiritual anuraga, following the attachment. They do not realize the nature of spiritual attraction. This spiritual attraction is the jiva's natural dharma and eternal nature. Forgetting this, the jiva is filled with attraction for matter, which is our present condition. Hopefully it's a little mixed. The jiva, although a conscious particle by nature, experiences degradation. All the jivas in samsara do not understand that their miserable condition is miserable. This is so interesting. All the jivas in samsara do not understand that their miserable condition is miserable. They think their miserable condition is blissful. Give me an example. Let me give you an example of that. One time we went to an amusement park. This is before I became a devotee, don't worry. And they have this one ride. It's called the centrifuge. And what it is you're against it's a circular thing, and you're against the wall of it, and it spins more and more, faster and faster, and you're pressed because there's this thing called centrifugal force, which is when something spins and you're on a wheel, there's a force that pushes you out. And you're subject to something called several G's. In other words, you start weighing several times more than you normally weigh, but the weight is actually on the back. So you don't get hurt. So you're pressed, and your skin starts in the face, and everything starts to slide to the back of the head. And it's miserable. And they're thinking, that miserable condition is blissful. Why is it blissful? Because when the stupid ride stops, then you get off and it's just like, you feel some relief. There's many rides like that. Or in the amusement parks, we used to go to these rides where, the horror house where you get scared, some skeleton jumps out at you. And then the skeleton jumps out at you, and you get scared. It was not fun, getting scared. Anyway, it's actually interesting. Let me see if we can go. We'll finish the next paragraph. What to speak of ragatmika nature, the jiva, that means the spiritual nature where someone's absorbed in raga or Krishna consciousness. The jiva bound by Maya does not know at all about raganuga. By the strength of a devotee's mercy, the nature of raganuga manifests in a jiva's heart. Raganuga means to follow a ragatmika devotee, like we follow Prabhupada. Not that we should try to jump ahead to a higher level of devotional service than we're at, but at least we can follow Prabhupada as an eternal liberated associate. Thus, raganuga nature is rare and difficult to attain. Jivas in samsara are cheated of this nature, but the Lord is omniscient and compassionate. He has seen that the jiva bound by Maya is cheated from this spiritual inclination. How can auspiciousness arise for the jiva, for us? What method is there for the jiva in Maya to develop remembrance of Krishna? If the jiva attains association with devotees, here's the key, he will be able to understand that he is a servant of Krishna. There is no set rule for association of devotees. Where is the hope that such an association will happen for all people? If I do not make a path of rules, vidimarga, for ordinary people, they will have no deliverance. From this merciful consideration the Lord's scriptures appeared. The sun in the form of scriptures arising from the Lord's mercy in the sky the sages' hearts was preached in terms of the orders and rules for ordinary people. In other words, to regulate people, first of all, so that they will ultimately, let's say, at least be in the mode of goodness, so at least have an opportunity to associate with great devotees. Then, don't send me things and chat until I'm finished. Then, at that particular point, that gives people an opportunity to come to Krishna consciousness. Mode of goodness. The rules are, even though they're material meant for people in the in the modes. It brings them up to the mode of good. As Krishna in the Gita says, Trigunya Vishaya Veda Nis Trigunya Bhavarjana, Nirdwan just like the stone near Yoga Shema Atman. Mainly the Vedas deal with the three modes of nature. But he says to Arjuna, you're not on that platform, you're above that platform. So you don't have to follow all these secondary injunctions for people who have not come to the Raganuga platform. So obviously, most of us are not, let's say, strictly speaking, according to Rupa Goswami, on the Raganuga platform. But in one sense, in a sense that's really mentioned here, we could say that we're on the Raganuga platform because we're following pure devotees. We have the association with pure devotees. So many of these ordinary rules and regulations, we're not talking about the four regulated principles, don't take this out of context. Many of these different rules and regulations may not be applicable. Therefore, you have an acharya like Prabhupada who gives us the rules that are applicable for us and the ones that are not applicable for us. He doesn't give us because they would actually confuse us or to even take us away from Krishna consciousness. So anyway, so these are some of the points. I got to stop sharing so we can take some questions. Let's take some questions here. I will allow you all to unmute yourselves. Give me 1 second. And you can raise your hand. You can type in the chat window. Oh, there is a question already from Abhay Chaitanya. Chaitanya. Hare Krishna Gurudev, please accept my obeisance. If one moves to the Raganuga stage, does that mean they don't follow the Vaidhi rule? No, it doesn't mean that. It means they follow, is it like a ladder that you have to go up every rung or people jump a step? You don't follow the Vaidhi rules because they're rules. You follow them because you spontaneously follow them. Just like we have our four regulated principles. If you're on the Raganuga platform, you still follow the four regulated principles, but you do it automatically. You have no desire to break the four regulated principles, okay? So you follow the Vaidhi rules. In general, is it like a ladder that you have to go up every rung or people? You can jump up. I mean, look at Magrari. Magrari was a hunter and he was on not even on the Raganuga or even on the Vaidhi platform. And he got the association of Narada Muni and he came immediately to the highest platform. So one doesn't have to go up every rung of the ladder. By the mercy of the pure devotee, one can actually achieve Krishna consciousness instantaneously. Okay. Lord Brahma has a question. You can unmute yourself. Brahmaji.
Hare Krishna Maharaj, all glories to Srila Prabhupada.
All glories to
Obeisances. Maharaj, just before the last verses you were reading about Raganuga and Ragatmika,
Yeah.
there was a few sentences about, as long as we are materially contaminated, we don't achieve some state. I forget what.
Ragatmika. We don't achieve Ragatmika.
Before those verses, there was some other explanation. I did not write it down, but I was wondering if you could show us those verses. Maybe I can write it down. And my question is, how does one know whether he's still under the influence of the material?
That's why we have Guru Maharaj. Well, we have spiritual master, and we have the association of Vaishnavas.
Okay.
Because one, and actually even a great devotee thinks I'm still under the influence of the modes of nature, even if you're a pure devotee. Like Prabhupada, I was listening. Some of you may have heard my class the other day where Prabhupada said to Brahmatirtha, who was Bob Cohn at that time, he said, "You are the best of the devotees," and Prabhupada said, "I'm the worst of the devotees." And Prabhupada was just speaking out of humility. So one always has to take shelter of the devotees to know what is appropriate and what is not appropriate. One should not think, I mean, like the Goswamis of Vrindavan, they followed the rules and regulations like lines on a stone. Their determination was so strict to follow the rules and regulations. They weren't thinking, Oh, I'm on the highest platform of devotional service, and certainly they were on the highest platform of devotional service. They they were pure, liberated, Nityasiddha devotees. Yet they weren't thinking, I'm a Nityasiddha devotee, I can get away with any damn thing. They weren't thinking like that. So one has to have the association of devotees, because when you try to do things on your own, you're going to be bewildered, most likely. So here you see, like all these devotees, they're actually interacting in such an intimate way, and this Vaishnava Das taking permission from his spiritual master, and everyone's just humble. I think if one's humble, then one will be safe in Krishna consciousness.
Thank you, Maharaj.
What is it, Prangovenda? You don't say funny things like that. He just don't pay attention to what Prangovenda says. He likes to praise me. So anyway, so who else? Raganuga, Mayanuga. So
Maharaj,
anyway,
I love you. You are the best example in my life.
oh my God,
Please accept my
you're
obeisance.
you're in trouble if I'm the best example in your life. I feel sorry for you. All right, who else has a question? Come on. Someone else has a question about. I actually I think it's important to understand that Bhaktivinoda Thakur's description of Raganuga is not exactly the same as Rupa Goswami's description in the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, but it's similar. It's very similar, but it's not exactly the same. Uh, because under Bhaktivinoda Thakur's description, we're actually those of us who are following in Prabhupada's footsteps or follow his examples could be considered at least partially like Raganuga, but we may not be on that platform according to Srila Rupa Goswami at this point, completely on that platform. But we do follow a Ragatmaka devotee, and that is His Divine Grace Srila Prabhupada. And for those who are really advanced in devotional service, Raganuga Bhakti means that you have some eternal resident of Krishna in Goloka Vrindavan, and you're serving them internally. I mean, that's a very high platform. So, who else has a question? Question or comment or problem? Atmanandini. Oh,
Right.
Ragatmaka is a higher stage than Raganuga? Yes. Ragatmaka means one's Atma is Raga. You're liberated. You're in the spiritual world. You're serving Krishna eternally. You know, that's a Raganuga. That's Ragatmaka. You're absolutely pure devotee. Raga Atmaka. Okay, so Atmanandini has a question. You can unmute yourself.
Hare Krishna Maharaj.
Haribal.
I am not able to put my question in words, so I'm asking, but please forgive if it's a silly question. You were mentioning in the class, like when this person was trying to sing just to impress others rather than like to with the service attitude.
Yeah.
So I was just wondering, like when we are encouraged that we should be serving Vaishnavas for the pleasure of the Vaishnavas. So when
Yeah.
we are doing our service, uh, to please the devotee or a Vaishnav, we are more aware of our service so that the quality is better. But that means we are being sense gratifying ourselves
No,
to.
no, 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 no. This person wasn't thinking so much to please. He was thinking that he wanted to please the Vaishnavas so they would pay him attention. So the motivation for wanting to attract, he wanted to attract the attention rather than please. The right expression should be he wanted to attract attention to himself. It was mixed. It wasn't all bad. It was mixed, and because he had that, he was chanting at the same time he became purified of it. I mean, oftentimes we see that. I'm not going to criticize anybody because certainly I'm the most guilty. That someone's chanting and just like thinking, "Oh, I'm a great singer, a very good musician, and people are really appreciating me." Like, so that's 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 certainly Ishwara Hama Bogi. I am the center. I am the enjoyer. I'm the controller, whatever. So that's not a very high stage. But if one's chanting, whatever the motivation, just like one's taking prasadam, the motivation may be to eat something really tasty, but then ultimately one will come to the proper consciousness and realization. So, akama, sarvakama, mokshakama dharadi, rubrena bhakti yogena yajeta purusham param. Whatever motivation one has, if one performs devotional service without committing offenses, then one will come to a higher platform, like Dhruva Maharaj's motivation, typical example like that. Okay, time to end. This is quite an interesting discussion, and I see we got a lot of interest in this book, Bhaktivinoda Thakur's Jaiva Dharma. So, thank you very much. We'll see everybody tomorrow, same time, same station.